It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name's Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Delightful.
Pretty good.
Embalmed. Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, I hate to do this again, but I've kind of been boring.
I find that very hard to believe, but okay.
Right. I can't even, well, no. Let's say I can't even say I've watched anything interesting. This weekend they had like an 80s marathon on that I kind of got into for a little while. I hadn't seen some of that stuff.
Like you said, not interesting.
Yeah, not very interesting.
Kidding. I'm kidding.
Is that like background chatter stuff, you know? No, we just had the holiday and I got to spend some time with my sister, so not a lot.
That's good.
Yeah. I always like spending time with her.
Yeah. She's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which sister are we
I
talking
can't
about?
tell her that. Yeah. The cool
The cool one. Okay. Good.
Yeah. Cool.
Whew.
Yeah, she's the one up for me. I've got 3, but yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
And they all have their pet names, but anyway.
Yeah,
We
they
don't
do.
need to go into that.
Oh, she'd kick my ass if I said her pet name.
Pet name? What is that?
Right.
What is her pet name?
Right. It's not today.
You're going to have to wait a little, give her a little more time to forget before you trick her with that one.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't feel like dying today.
She wouldn't come kill you till tomorrow. Come on.
Oh, no, she has like that sense. She would know.
A spidey sense, maybe?
Yeah, it's a sissy sense.
Mm-hmm. Careful how you pronounce that. She was.
Right.
Bust out her sissy sense and kick your ass. Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
no.
So you're really going to make me go already, huh?
Yeah, I just don't have a lot, yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Boring is good. I keep telling you that.
Boring.
For like 3 years now, 4 years now, I've been listening to you not believe me when I tell you that boring is good. Because you keep having an exciting life. Now you're finally starting to get it, aren't you?
I am. But you know, I'm kind of enjoying that though.
No, right.
I needed things to settle down for me, you know.
Yep. You sure as hell did.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think we talked before show, light at the end of the tunnel. I'm seeing it, so yay.
Good for you.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it'll probably end up like Wile E. Coyote and his train, but, you know. Gets almost to the end of that tunnel and wow.
That
Yeah,
tunnel that's
I'm enjoying.
just a painted
Bef-
wall.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
We all have.
Yeah.
Some of us more than others, mind you, but yeah. All right, fine. I'll try to be exciting.
And new.
Don't let us down.
Warning, I'm never exciting. So last week I weenied out and hadn't finished watching the thing I was watching. So I actually managed to, because I was very close to the end of that. So I finished that and actually watched something else too. So I got two things. They're very similar because, again, not exciting. So I've been sort of in a sci-fi mood. So I've been finding stuff semi-randomly on some of the. I don't have a ton of streaming services. I'm not Liz, but
Yeah.
I do have Prime, and one movie I saw because so there was something that caught my eye about this movie. The movie is called The Angry Red Planet. It is from 1959.
Yay.
And the thing that caught my eye about it was that because Amazon puts like descriptor categories on them, and one of the ones that they put on this one was camp. And I was like, all right, I'll try that and see what happens. And I was like, all right, I'm going to watch this until I can't handle the camp anymore, and then I'll just bail. This was not a campy movie. At least I didn't think so. I thought it was pretty good for the time and for what it was about. I mean, it's late 50s, so it's a traveling to Mars movie, not surprisingly. Rocket ship to Mars, a 4-person crew. They get there and stuff's weird. It's kind of not unusual. Fairly common storyline for movies like this. I didn't think it was that poorly done. I thought the dialogue was, I mean, I'd say slightly above middle of the road. There was some weirdness and some silliness, but it wasn't bad overall. That it was told in flashback because, that's you show the end of the story and then you go back to the beginning. It works fine. They had to basically drug one of the scientists to get the story out of her, but that's okay. Was it especially? One of the characters, the female and the commander, had a conversation at one point, and it was relatively woman positive. The gist of what the commander guy was saying was women don't have a monopoly on emotions, which I thought was a fairly forward thing. It was a fairly positive statement. I don't know that the movie lived up to it exactly, but it was not bad. I guess the weirdness, the thing that made this movie weird was kind of the way they filmed or presented the surface of Mars. It was essentially, not to get too spoilery on a 400-year-old movie, it was part live shots from like deserts and stuff and part hand animated, and it was shot through a very red filter. So it looked, admittedly, nowadays you look at it and go, yeah, it looks cheesy, but it's fine. I didn't have a problem with it. I can't imagine that wasn't what they were talking about when they labeled it as camp, but it didn't really strike me as being particularly campy. There are some. The movie, I guess, is well known enough and such that there are several there are lots of images of it around because of the look. So it has kind of stood up in that regard for this long. So my review of it is generally positive. I liked it. I wasn't bored when I was watching it. So it wasn't that slow. It was a kind of an unfolding. I mean, to call it a mystery would be a stretch, but I thought they unfolded the story at a pretty decent pace. And some people got, I mean, it wasn't like everybody survived and lived happily ever after. There were some survivors, and they did okay for themselves afterwards. It was fine, but I thought went relatively well. It was a pretty decent movie. I don't know that there were any big names in it. I suppose, I mean, it was an AIP movie, so I mean, it wasn't necessarily a Corman film, but it wouldn't have been too terribly far removed. I mean, Ib Melchior is a name that some people have heard if you've watched a bunch of movies from that time period. One of the producers was Norman Maurer, who is a name that will sound familiar from, I think his name came up when we talked about the Three Stooges. He did some work with them later in their careers, including marrying Moe's daughter, but anyway. And I mean, I guess generally speaking, the movie met with kind of mixed response when it came out, but it seemed to make a pretty decent amount of money. So, hey, you know, for B movies, it did all right. The other one that I watched after that was another sci-fi movie. This one, I guess, almost qualifies as horror also. It was entitled Queen of Blood. It is from 1966. It is another AIP movie, and a little later, obviously. This one does have a few more names involved. It stars John Saxon. Basil Rathbone also plays a prominent role, which kind of later in his career, but he does all right. You know, it's Basil Rathbone. What's he gonna do? Screw up? I don't think so. I was also impressed by a young Dennis Hopper in this movie. Not for long because he bites it fairly early on. But spoiler alert! Sorry. Again, for a 60-plus-year-old movie. But yeah, this is another Rocket to Mars story. This one is specific. It is set in 1990. And people have been going back and forth to the moon for 20 years at this point. And just as they're getting ready to send their first mission to Mars, they get a message from outer space basically telling them, hey, we're going to send an ambassador, meet us there. So they go to Mars and rescue an alien. And her ship has crashed, so they have to that's why they have to rescue her. And so they bring her, they stick her on their ship, and they start bringing her back to Earth. Well, it turns out she has specific dietary restrictions, so to speak. She's a vampire, and she starts eating people. Starting with Dennis Hopper, which I thought was cool. Given that apparently, when I was watching this, I was thinking, oh, hey, cool, a young Dennis Hopper. This must be early in his career. No, he'd been going for like 10 years before this, so not so much early in his career. And so they finally, the one guy dies, and the rest of them figure it out. Okay, it's got to be her, because none of the rest of us are vampires. We're all pretty sure of this. So they basically give her all the stored medical supply of blood that they have, and then she gets hungry again and eats the commander. And then the other two kind of to say they team up is silly because they're actually kind of an item. So they end up kind of catching her. One of them wakes up early and catches the vampire trying to eat the other person, and they end up accidentally killing the vampire, the alien. And then the big twist of the story is about the time they get the ship back to Earth, they realize that the alien has laid eggs all over the ship. And so the hero, the star, the astronaut, John Saxon's trying to talk the scientist guy, who is Basil Rathbone, into just destroying it all. And he's like, no, everything's cool. We'll keep it contained. It's all for science. And then it flashes the end on the screen. Needless to say, it has been mentioned that maybe Ridley Scott has seen this movie. But I thought, again, this is one that was not... It was moderately well received. It wasn't a huge hit or anything. It made some money, but didn't get a lot of critical acclaim because, it's the 60s, it's sci-fi. That's mostly impossible. But generally speaking, I thought it was pretty good. It might have been just a bit slower than Angry Red Planet, but not so much so that it affected the story or anything. If I did have one complaint, this one I watched on Tubi. Their copy is a little blurry, pretty consistently throughout. So it's not crystal sharp pictures or anything. It's a little fuzzy. It's not super distracting. You don't really notice it that much after a while. How much it affects your impression of the movie might vary per viewer, but overall, I liked it pretty well. I thought it was pretty fun.
Two good choices.
Yeah, it's kind of randomly too. I guess I didn't realize I was in such a sci-fi mood until kind of I was finishing up Queen of Blood, and I was like, oh wait, both sci-fi movies. Huh.
Yes, the Angry Red Planet, what I remember most is the bat rat spider crab creature.
Yeah, that thing makes an impression for sure.
As a kid, I was fascinated. Where did they come up with this one? Type situation. And I agree, it's an enjoyable movie. Don't think that you're going to learn all that much, but it's really fun to watch.
Yep, I thought so. And I mean, yeah, other than the effects, I can't see any reason why. It kind of bothered me. It still bothers me a little that they called it camp. I'm like, I didn't see anything camp about this at all. I mean, it was 1959. What the hell are you expecting in terms of special effects?
True.
They were making it all up. I mean, it was based on I think that one was the one that was based on a story. Actually, it may have been a straight to screenplay thing, but it was a story that was essentially written for this, and they made stuff up. That's what fiction is, folks. Nobody had been to Mars yet. I mean, not that we've been to Mars, but we've sent robots now. We hadn't seen pictures of Mars. It was pure imagination at that point. They were this was at a point where we're trying to spark the space race, trying to get it started. It's not like we were well into it or anything. We're still starting. So yeah, they're going to run with it a little bit. It was a decent, other than that, it was a decent adventure movie, It didn't strike me as horror at all. And like I said, look around. There are images of it lots of places. I mean, one of the things that it mentions here is that they used the picture of a picture of that creature for the cover of a Misfits album back in the 80s. I mean, once you go punk, man, how bad can it be, right? Just saying. That's just one example.
Yeah. Your second choice, what I can recall from it, you lined it out very well. And to me, when I resaw it, the first thing that came to my mind was the Steve Railsback movie years ago.
Life Force?
Yep.
Life Force.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I drew a looks like kind of comment.
Yeah, I can see it. Mainly because I think Life Force is a bit of an Alien ripoff too. But you know, I mean, it wasn't. The stories were there, right? It's just a matter of where you're taking inspiration from. You can take inspiration from both places. And yeah, I can see where you're coming from for sure. They're wearing more clothes in Queen of Blood. But yeah.
Yeah. I like both of the choices.
Yep.
Makes me want to go back and watch them now.
I recommend them. It's fun to watch old sci-fi movies.
Oh yeah.
Especially good ones. Watching terrible ones is its own pleasure, but it's a different pleasure. I mean, these are pretty good ones, so it's a different level of fun. I like both levels of fun, but these are good ones.
Okay, Les?
Like we were talking before the program, I watched the Turner Classics. They were showing George Powell movies. And in this run, I got to watch Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, Atlantis, the Lost Continent. Got to watch Doc Savage, Man of Bronze. And there was one other, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Powell was a visionary. He was able to do so much and give you such a fine story when he did it. And that's the major difference between a lot of producers and or directors now. Getting the special effects and such is one thing, but when you can give them a really solid story, that's where I'm happiest. To see somebody like Tony Randall play so many parts and be able to keep them apart as far as delivery was, to me, pretty astounding. Atlantis, the Lost Continent is one I've been wanting to see for so long. Getting the story of how Atlantis was, or how Atlantis sunk into the ocean, was phenomenal too. So if you get the chance, find them and watch them, because they are amazing stories. That was about it for me.
Yeah, say what you will about George Powell. He knew how to make a spectacle of a movie.
I agree. I strongly agree.
It's what I mean. Whether the movie's good or bad, and there are probably a few bad ones. There's still something to watch. I mean, given the time frame that he made them and some of the people he had access to, I mean, in front of and behind the cameras. He did some stuff, man.
To me, his peer at that time would have been Harryhausen, because to me they both told solid stories, and the special effects were there, but nothing beats a good story.
Yep.
Okay. For me, it's another week of really not much going on. So, oh well.
You always say that. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh well. Before we get into this week's discussion, I do want to point out that we do have a Discord that are more than welcome to come join us if you want to hang out with us. We post a lot of news items, stuff for discussion, stuff to kind of laugh at. We usually have some activities on there, that kind of thing. Sign up for Discord is free. The app is available on all app stores for free. We do have an open invitation on our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. So, there's usually a couple of us on there. Most of the time, there's usually one or two of us there. So, more than welcome to come hang out with us.
Yeah, it's
Please.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay. We are continuing. We're kind of trending on comic book topics here for the next few weeks, which is kind of cool because we hadn't done that in a while. It's usually been some, kind of all over the map, and then that's okay. But for this week, we're actually talking about the 50th anniversary of the death of Gwen Stacy and the original Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. Which the timing of this is kind of pretty good considering what's been going on in the Spider-Man books right now. So let's talk about this story arc and the impact it had on comics, because it did. This is one of the first story arcs where we actually had to my recollection, that we actually had a supporting character be killed. They're always being kidnapped or tortured or something like this. This was actually the death of a character, and Gwen was not a character that was just introduced a couple issues later and then this happened. She has been around for years. So let's talk about this one.
Was kind of dark. I like that not only was it, the first time we've had someone like that die, it kind of also showed that sometimes the superhero doesn't always win. And it was implied, I don't know if they came back later and tried to correct, but it was implied that by him trying to save her, he actually killed her. So it was kind of like, that was dark.
Oh, there's been a lot of discussion about that over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do agree it was a big impact because it did open the door for, what was it, the Bronze Age that started pretty much after this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is one of the story arcs where you can kind of get some discussion on this starts the Bronze Age. Some might say the Green Lantern, Green Arrow are trailing hero stories, which we discussed in a previous episode. That could be it. So there's not really like a clear cut as opposed to the consensus is the Silver Age began with, I believe it's showcase number 4, the first appearance of Barry Allen Flash, the Silver Age Flash. Bronze Age, there's like 3 or 4 different events where this is definitely one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I found it interesting. I said, of course now we've seen it, but remembering at the time we hadn't, it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I bet it had a really big impact when it came
out.
Yeah. Well, I was watching some YouTube videos where they went through some of the commentary on it, and from my understanding, the 2 writers and Romita, the original plan was to kill Aunt May, and they were like, no. I think it was Romita who said that he came back and was like, well, why don't we kill Gwen Stacy instead? This is the part I don't understand. They said she was getting hard to write because they had gotten into a place in their relationship that they just didn't know how to go forward with that, which to me, that's bullshit. But anyway.
It's a crappy reason to kill somebody anyway.
It is. It really is. So they said they asked Stan Lee. Now, he has a different recollection because they said when they asked Stan Lee, he was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Because they said that once Stan Lee was done with the character and had moved on, he was pretty much like, yeah, whatever. I'm concentrated over here. Well, he said they asked him, but he didn't really fully understand what they were asking him. I don't know how you mince words with, hey, we're about to kill Gwen Stacy, but he didn't understand that until he got back. So,
yeah,
I mean,
he claimed he was distracted when they asked him.
I don't think he was. I think it was a case like Romita said where he was kind of like, yeah, whatever you want to do. Don't bother me with this. I'm working on this kind of thing. But he said, I don't agree with why they did it. I think, there was lots of different ways they could have taken those characters. But, But who was the other guy? It wasn't Romita. Who was the other guy who wrote on this?
Jerry Conway.
Yeah.
Was it? I think it was Conway had said that he kind of felt at the time when this had happened that Stan Lee kind of threw him to the wolves because they had so much backlash from the readers. They're like, I can't believe you're doing this. And, back in the day, usually like the last 2 pages of your comic book was like letters from the editor, where they would, share letters from, the readers and that kind of thing, or the editor would have a commentary or whatever. They said it was just full of people like, you're fucking stupid, and what the hell are you doing? And I'm done. Of course, Spider-Man survived from this, but they said it kind of made Conway kind of shy later on to kind of, I'm sure being canceled back then is nothing like being canceled now, but I bet that still sucks, when actually it wasn't just me who did this. We had permission to do this. So, yeah. But yeah, fans, they said it was kind of a mixed review with fans. A lot of them didn't like it. Later interview with Stan Lee, he had said that he didn't like that they had done this and that he was going to reverse it and bring her back. He was going to overgo what they did. I don't think they actually brought her back in that sense. Isn't she like Spider-Woman now or something? Spider-Gwen?
Spider-Gwen came much, much later.
Yeah. But is it the same Gwen Stacy or?
No, it's from another universe.
Okay.
When in doubt, throw the multiverse at it.
Yeah.
Yay.
So he never did reverse what they did.
No.
I don't think, given the cultural impact, I don't think there was any way to reverse what they did.
Yeah.
They did it good.
Well, Stan Lee was good at fanfare, so.
Right. He was probably saying stuff like that when he was still in the process of trying to figure out how to turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
He probably didn't
Realize the
know
impact.
exactly. Yeah, he didn't. It took him a while to grasp the impact, but when he realized how big it was, I'm sure
Yeah.
he handled it fine. But I think a lot of the quotes from him on this were in that period where he was still trying to figure out how to Stan Lee the situation.
Yeah. See, I don't know who exactly was to blame on that one.
Oh, I don't think there was a person to blame. I mean,
No.
so often there isn't ever. I mean, even when it seems like there should be, there usually isn't one person to blame. But
Yeah.
our society loves to blame a single person,
And a scapegoat. Yep.
yeah, this is definitely a scapegoat society. So there we are. But the deal was, whether people loved it or hated it, they felt strongly about it, and in droves. So it had an
Yeah.
impact. It worked. Whether
Oh, and
exactly what they
anytime.
were trying to do, who knows? But it worked.
Yeah. And I think this was a 2-issue series or 2-issue story arc, and
Mhm.
I think they told the story well, especially given what happened after the circumstances and everything else. One part I did find kind of lame about the stories. I of course I didn't go back and read the previous episodes, just the 2 episode or the 2 issues here. I guess in previous episodes he had been in like Antarctica or something. So he was very sick, and it was like, come on. I mean, just admit that he just wasn't having the best day. He wasn't quick enough. Instead he has some kind of Antarctican flu, which actually, after they pumped this up so big, in the beginning of the episodes, they never mentioned it again after she died. So it's like, so how sick was he? So, yeah, like I said, I thought that was kind of, there was no need to add that in.
There's always a ton of crap like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And the guy having a drug, yeah, that was kind of weird too.
I mean, Marvel was the publisher that did the quote-unquote realistic type stories. They had the realistic heroes, so, I mean, people do have drug addictions, and people do get sick, and people do have bad days.
Yeah.
I mean, I suspect that having such a demanding publication schedule as a monthly book has, and the turnaround time for how long it takes to actually go from the initial idea to bookshelves,
Yeah.
the store shelves. I imagine that there's a lot of weird BS out there that they said or put in the books that didn't necessarily make a lot of sense because it would have been a while before they had a reaction from the fans. I mean, sure, they had letters which came in pretty quick, but
Yeah.
still, you're talking about a month or two after the story's published before you're getting all of these letters, and I mean, in some
Get your
cases, in this
feedback.
case, death threats. But yeah, it's just, I think that their initial reactions are going to be without the feedback that they get eventually from the public and from the letters and from I mean, at this point, I guess, I mean, from wherever people are buying their comics, they're going to get those folks are going to get feedback, whether they're still doing newsstands at this point or not. I don't even remember. But so a lot of the initial reactions are going to be in a vacuum or out of a vacuum, and it's just And then by the time they have any idea that there are problems, they've almost already moved on from it to a point where they can't necessarily go back.
Right.
So it's a weird in between situation where they can actually react to feedback, but sometimes it happens so slowly that they can't actually react to feedback, and so I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hate to be them. Kind of makes it easy to do something important without realizing it for a while, though.
I
Sure.
would like.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to bring you into the conversation. So
Oh,
go ahead.
thanks. I have a problem with part of this. Personally, I'm not going to defend Marvel. Just in the respect they're saying, well, we didn't know what kind of reaction we would have. There's only one problem. This storyline was not done the week before, or was not discussed the week before printing. We've seen titles take months to get to the specific point. So to me, Marvel had months to get this decided upon. And it wasn't just because Stan Lee went to a meeting or of some sort. They knew what was going to happen. And as a result, they took a hit, but nothing serious. They took a hit that they've had to live with, although it turned out to be the biggest story of their publication. So there I have a problem. They shouldn't be going, oh my God, we did so badly. You want to see badly? Look at the storyline they did where Peter and Mary Jane have to have, who is it, Mephisto, come and clean their mess up. To me, that was one of the weakest stories ever. And here, it was a good story. It was a strong telling. But don't try to just load it and say, well, we made a mistake and we're allowed to make mistakes. Yeah, they are. But this was a mistake they made 6 months in advance, at least. So I'm not buying the Crimea River story that they're touting.
Not into backpedaling, huh?
No, not in this case. That's kind of what I got to say about it.
Yeah, no argument here, man. I mean, if you don't know how to respond to what you did and to how other people are reacting to it, then maybe just shut up until you figure it out. I mean,
Sounds right.
I imagine it didn't take much more than 6 months or a year to start to see the impact, like you said before. I mean, this was a shift from Silver Age to Bronze Age. I mean, how much of that is actually visible when it's happening, I'm not sure, but it seems like this story that we're talking about drove significant change in the industry. Um, because it was controversial, because it was different, because it was harsher than stuff they had done in the past.
Yeah.
It,
Especially Spider-Man.
Right. Talk about your everyman type of hero.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who deals with regular people problems, and he has superpowers. I mean, and the idea that he's a superhuman and can't save everybody. I mean, I can see where that's a departure, and they made it hit close to home. That was the whole purpose. That was the point, was for this to hit close to home. They put it on the damn cover at the time. They knew what they were doing. I think it was something apparently that needed to happen. So, just do it. Do the thing. You want to do something controversial? Fine, do something controversial. Don't freak out when something controversial happens about it, though.
Right.
Well, I'm with Thomas because to me the gritty, the real portion of the Bronze Age, if that's what they want to say, is the difference between it and the Silver. That appeared with Green Arrow, Green Lantern. What was the hard-working,
Traveling.
hard traveling heroes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was one that broke the rules. You had flare-ups between the heroes. You had political statements. You had statements of touting religion. So, to me, it was Green Arrow, Green Lantern that started all this.
Yep, and it did so in a way that, if you'll forgive a sports reference, if you've ever heard the term small ball, you'll know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
They took it down to a personal level. I mean, they weren't members of this huge organization of superpowered individuals who are all over the place solving all of the world's problems. They're just two guys off on an Easy Rider style road trip. I mean, the fact that they have powers is almost irrelevant to the stories in that series, as I recall.
True.
So yeah, that's very different from what had been the norm up to that point. I mean, before then you had the Justice League, and you had the Avengers, and you had the X-Men, and you had several others that I'm blanking on. But all these big teams, and there were individuals that had books, but hell, Superman's a super team all by himself, and friggin' so's Batman. And that was a shift. The Green Lantern, Green Arrow thing was a shift in that, and this bad things happening to good people story is kind of another part of that same shift, where they're just they're bringing it in close, they're making it personal. I mean, I think that fits both stories. both books in that time period. It's a perspective change, which
Yes.
was probably sorely needed one way or another. So yeah.
Now let me ask you this: if if they had gone with the original idea and killing off Aunt May, would it still have been as big as this?
No.
No.
I agree with them at the time that it would have had a very different impact.
Yeah.
It would have been big. It would have changed Spider-Man as a character.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it would have had the same cultural impact.
It wouldn't have had the same effect, right? I agree.
Yeah. Well, and two, for Peter and Gwen, their relationship and everything else, they kind of made the reader fall in love with her at the same time. You know, we kind of got to watch that bloom. With Aunt May, it's a love, but it's a different kind of love. One that we all identify with, but, you know, with Gwen, it was that special somebody. She was a good person. So it was just kind of shocking that, for one, that she died, but she was a good person, you know, and that was kind of, wow, you know, bad things happen to good people. But yeah, I don't think it would have, it, like you said, it would definitely have been another turning point for Peter, but not in the same losing the love of your life, you know. Which he said he would never love anyone the way he did her. I mean, kids.
Uh-huh. See, and another
Yeah,
interesting...
he bounced back pretty quick.
Yeah. They do in the comics.
It's all that webbing. It's very bouncy.
Yeah, very.
Another
To
thing...
snap your neck. Sorry.
Yikes. Now it's all dark.
Right.
Jeez.
You know, well, you know, Marvel did it.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Oh, yeah, blame Marvel.
I am.
See, another thing that makes this interesting to me is this is obviously this is an iconic story in comics. And as often as we have talked about / bitched about the retelling of Batman's origin in other media, like movies and TV, this is the story for Spider-Man that has been retold over and over and over again in various ways.
Yep.
And has honestly been appropriated by others along the way too. And similar stories have been told about other characters like this. This is the one that has showed up in multiple movies already. Doesn't always involve somebody dying, mind you. In fact, it seems to very seldom involve somebody dying. But there's always the saving of someone, or the attempting to save someone because of something a bad guy did. And a lot of, especially over the last, 50 years, that story has looked and smelled an awful lot like this one. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, was it Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man that they used the storyline in?
Oh, they did it with Toby.
It was Toby?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they might have done it with Garfield too.
Yeah,
but
they did it with Garfield too.
Yeah, they
I
redid
thought
it.
Toby's love interest was always MJ.
It was.
I don't know.
I think it was the second movie where she's falling off a bridge, and he has to save her.
Oh, okay, so they did it with MJ and not Gwen.
Multiple times in various
Okay.
ways, yes. But in specifically that case, yeah, it was MJ.
Okay. because I did like that in the latest movies where all three of them come together, they kind of touch on that again. And, for him, it was, in the movie, not comic verse, but movie verse, that was a major changing point for him. When that was very hard to let go of and did interfere with the way he did his job. So, yeah. Just throwing that out there.
That's
it took. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it has turned up in some variation or another in several what-if stories, too.
Yeah.
So.
Like, what if she would have lived?
Yeah, that's one of them.
That would have been interesting. 'Cause wasn't he getting ready to tell her who he was?
Yep. He sure was.
So, yeah, I think it took a lot of guts to write this story. But, yeah. Like I said, I think if the reason they did this was because they didn't know what to do with them as a couple, I still have to say lame. But the story was good. They followed it through, and it did push him where he needed to be. So, just the reasoning behind it,
Yeah, well, you read enough backstories about anything in media, and you'll come across weird origin stories for certain things that don't sound plausible in any way, but sometimes that is the way it happens.
Yeah.
It is a kind of a lame way to deal with it, but it's also a very bold way of dealing with it. That clearly, if that was really what they were thinking, it clearly had impacts that they never imagined, which to me sounds suspicious. I kind of find it hard to believe that they didn't have some inkling of what they were doing, which I think was Les's point too.
Yeah,
but,
they knew what they was doing. They knew it would definitely be a shakeup.
Yep.
Not as much as if they would have killed Spider-Man, but it was definitely a shakeup.
To be honest, killing Spider-Man wouldn't have been as much of a shakeup, I don't think, because I don't know about Spider-Man at that point, but other superheroes had died and returned at that point already.
Yeah,
so it was kind of it wasn't a huge thing. It wasn't happening all the time yet like it does now, but it was happening.
Now, when Gail Simone did her girlfriend in a refrigerator list, Gwen Stacy was on there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually checked that before recording, so I do have a link, and we can put that in the show notes.
Cool. Good thinking.
Cool. Yep.
It's like you planned this or something, huh?
Well,
6 months in advance.
Nice.
Well, and it kind of totally goes to what she says. Sometimes when writers get to the point where they just don't know what to do, they shove the girlfriend in the refrigerator. And kind of that's what they did here. They didn't know what to do with them anymore. It was his words was too complicated. But yeah,
Right. To go any further with the relationship, they might have actually had to ask a female what it would be like.
Right.
Or something,
Yeah. And aren't most relationships complicated? It's supposed to be. I don't know, after pouring so much attention into a character, I could have killed her, but like I said, I did enjoy the story. I think they told a solid story. It helped him there at the end with Green Goblin, so it did what it was supposed to do. But like I said, if behind the scenes is what I'm going about, so it is a good story.
And by helped him with Green Goblin, you mean helped him build up the guts to beat the shit out of Green Goblin.
Well, it kind of taught him a lesson too, because as much as he wanted him dead, although, he wasn't the one to actually kill him, it was the hoverboard thing that actually killed him. He still made the point of saying, and I don't feel any better. This did nothing. So it kind of taught him the lesson of no matter how mad you are, killing them is not the answer. Killing them's not going to bring Gwen back, or killing them's not going to make me not feel like shit anymore, And honestly, as a superhero, that's a very important lesson to learn,
The distinction
you've got to
between
have
revenge
control.
and justice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's what it helped him do. Plus the pure rage that he used to confront him with. So it did what it was supposed to do. They, like I said, excellent story, but yeah.
Generally speaking, not your cup of tea, huh?
Right. I could have thought of more creative things to do with her. And honestly, as even though it's been so played out now, even just to break them up would have added so many different kind of stories, But they went the permanent route.
They went drastic.
They did. No return.
No, not until you hit the multiverse era, but yeah.
Yeah. I do like now that a lot of it's not animated as far as like teen animated littler kid shows that they're doing now with Spider-Man. They do have Gwen in a lot of them. It's Spider-Gwen, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's because they're all tied into the multiverse concept now.
Yeah.
I mean, like all of them. Unfortunately.
Yeah, because I think the newest one that they've have out, it's Miles, Peter, and Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool because the baby likes that one. So when given the choice between like a pink ballerina dress and a Spider-Man dress, I'll have to show you pictures of the Spider-Man dress.
Raising that kid right.
Right? Yeah. It's Marvel, but we're getting there.
I want to see the photograph of Peter in the ballerina costume.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, next time you go to a convention, find an artist out there
I'm
doing
sure,
commissions.
yeah.
I'm sure you can do it. Find one.
Yeah. So you could probably find a Deadpool in a tutu for a model,
You could you go to a convention these days, you could find 5 Deadpools and tutus just walking around cosplaying.
Yeah, just getting to the door.
Right. But we digress.
Yeah.
I have recollection of getting face painting done, and I was Princess Hulk Smash.
Mm-hmm. I remember
Princess
that.
Hulk Smash.
Never lived that down, but yeah.
Well, Peter has wore some pretty bad outfits in his time. So, a ballerina costume can't be that bad.
Right. It'd be a lot worse.
Not that much out of realm.
Mm.
Well,
I mean,
remember
he's halfway there with the leotards.
when he found out that the black suit was actually a symbiote, they got it off of him. Johnny gave him an old Fantastic Four uniform, and then he wore a paper sack over his head as a mask. So that's how he had to get home.
Walk of shame.
There you go. Right.
The walk of shame, or the web slinging of shame. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
That just takes you back to the Irving Forbush days. Remember that character?
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, any final thoughts on this? And we'll just wrap it up. Definitely read it. It's a really good story.
Here,
It
here.
is.
Totally.
It's a good, solid story.
Clearly game changer.
It's only 2 issues, so. Oh, and I don't know if we mentioned, but the cover of this comic didn't tell the readers at the time who was going to die. Did we say that?
No.
I don't think we did.
Okay.
Yeah, it did.
Well, as a matter of fact, the title of the story wasn't shown until the final page.
Yeah. So, and yeah. So it was kind of like a build-up of who was going to die, you know. And they had like 6 or 7 different people. Aunt May was one of them on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, the title wasn't revealed until she had died and ending out.
Yep.
Yeah. 2 issues, you get the whole story. They probably have it combined. I had heard, didn't you post in Discord, Thomas, that they are putting this together for the anniversary of it?
I believe so.
So.
Some of the Epic collections. I just don't have that information right in front of me right now.
Yeah, check it out.
Yep.
Okay, on that note, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Geek News for you. And we're back, and it's time for Geek News for you. In this segment, we bring a couple of news items to the table for discussion. For this week, it is Mikey and myself. Mike, you want to go ahead?
Oh, sure. So this was an interesting article that somebody posted in the Discord this week, a few days ago. And it's from CBR, and it's okay. So the concept put out in the article, I think, is a good one, and I think it's interesting and it has merit. The article itself is really kind of just an opinion piece, so I don't know. And it is the concept that the article puts out is the idea that the video game Red Dead Redemption, or the series of video games, would be really cool as a TV series. Which, as an idea, I think has merit. It's a well-regarded and well-loved series of video games. This would be a good time for it because, Westerns are kind of, I don't know that I would call it a renaissance, but there have been some successful Westerns in the past few years. They seem to have done well. They seem to be well liked. Fans of the Red Dead Redemption series have really liked. It's a story-driven game, and there's some interesting stories going on in it, and there's a lot of cool variations in the gameplay, and honestly, there's a big. I'm not sure it's still going. You tell me, Tom. But the roleplay streams for this game are they were very popular for a long time. They may still be. I haven't actually looked in a while, but
I don't know if they were big now as they were then, but I came across them right when the pandemic hit. And they seemed to be really big then, and that was probably the reason why a lot of people were forced to stay home. So they had this as an option to either play or watch someone else play. And there was some really good content at one time. I don't know about now, because honestly, I have not watched it in a while, because a lot of the people that I follow, frankly, got burned out, or there were situations where they had to leave because it was not enjoyable to them, or it's a combination of both. So yeah. So.
Yep, and that there's or has been that kind of following. The people are really into it, enough into it that they're essentially creating their own stories through the gameplay. I mean, yeah, clearly these people love the story and love the world that game builds. So yeah, I mean, if you can find a group of writers and a showrunner that are that passionate about it, then hell yeah, it would make a good story. It would make a good
Taylor
series.
Sheridan.
Yeah,
That's who they need to get.
Let's be careful with that whole going to the well too many times thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let Taylor Sheridan do what Taylor Sheridan wants to do. Don't try to drag him into something else, you know?
Yeah.
Don't just
But
try to
they said
capitalize
that
on his success.
they said that Yellowstone was getting ready to end. Kevin Costner was done. So, you know, he does have that other series about to start, but he's got a little time on his hands. He does write a good Western.
Let's see when that new series is about to start, and
Yeah.
and then we'll figure out whether he's got time to work on something else.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of other people that could do it. Like I said, you want somebody who really cares about the property.
Right.
True.
You're not going to just talk Taylor Sheridan into caring about this property that's not his. My thing, if I have any complaint about the article itself, it's that is the whole purpose of the article. This is not necessarily sharing any news about the concept. It's just saying, hey, this would be cool. So, I mean, which is fine. I mean, it's not.
Well, I think
the article
was...
doesn't sell itself as being news either. So there we are.
Yeah. Well, I saw that. Was it Jack Black was really pushing for this?
Yeah.
That
this article
he had
drops
just
his
finished...
name, but I'm not sure it says anything about him.
Yeah. This was like a YouTube he was on. He like broke it all down and everything on why it would be good, and you know, he just got done with Mario Brothers, so like I said, I could see it because there are a lot of stories, and Westerns are pretty popular right now. I think because it's different than what they have been giving us, so it could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like you said, so far everybody's liked the video game adaptions that they've done recently, so
yeah,
maybe so.
I mean, The Last of Us has done really well, and the Witcher
There was
series,
another one.
can't count that out.
Yeah, that's what it said. I knew there was another one before that.
Yep, I mean, that's pretty much dead in the water now too, but that's just not. That's for different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
For as much shit as video game movies have caught over the decades, the idea that the TV series or streaming series based on video games are actually doing well is a huge win. So
it is.
We'll take
it. Yeah. For sure.
Okay. Yeah, I would. Y'all know me. I would love to see this happen. I hope it's not too late. That the time has passed, the window has passed for it. But who knows? You know, anything's possible. You know, as long as it's a good story, you know, it will find its audience.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's the trick.
Yeah. That's the trick with any of them.
Mm.
All right, I've got a couple of them. One of them may go over a little some territory that we have gone over before, but it just seems like anyway, here it is. Kathleen Kennedy, who we all know is president of Lucasfilm, was on the Dagobah Dispatch podcast, which is part of Entertainment Weekly. She talked about the possibility of a TV series in the Indiana Jones universe. That's a possibility. But she once again said this Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is the last Indiana Jones. She is steadfast that Indiana Jones will not be played by another actor, which is funny because as an article, and I thought about it even as I'm reading this article, The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones, folks. You may remember that series.
Yep.
Plus the fact River Phoenix played young Indiana Jones in one of the Indiana Jones films in Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? So it's like Indiana Jones has been played by a few actors. I don't understand. This is the same mentality she's had regarding Star Wars. It's so like, it was a mistake to do Solo because, and it did so poorly because it wasn't Harrison Ford. And the whole thing with Luke appearing in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and all that it's a CGI de-age Mark Hamill. No one else is ever going to play Luke and on all this. And it's just I don't understand that thinking. I posted something in Discord a few weeks back that was kind of talking about this, but it also mentioned the fact that, hey, look at Star Trek. The character Spock's been played by several actors, and no one's really complaining about that. How many actors have played Batman? How many actors have played James Bond? If we had that same mentality, hell, the only Batman we would have had has been back in 1940.
Yeah.
The serial, and I can't remember the actor's name to save my life, but that's the kind of thinking. And this kind of goes, and this little article goes, it's like some of the thinking I'm hearing is, well, there's going to be an about face on this at some point because this is too good. The character is a lovable character, and they're fun films. Whether you like Temple of Doom or you don't like Temple of Doom and don't like Crystal Skull, they're still all fun films, and that's what we love. We love the fun action adventure films. There's going to be a time where Indiana will come back. It may be 5, 10, 15 years. They may go back to, and restart this. But I don't have a problem with that. As long as they're good films. Once again, the whole thing about the story.
Mm.
I just don't understand her thinking of well, he did such a great job, I can't see anybody else doing it. Well, yeah, I get that. There are several actors that we would say that. Connery with Bond, Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, that kind of stuff. But there's always options.
Yeah. There should be.
It's like they don't want to make millions and millions of dollars on it. I mean, come on.
Well, or she doesn't, which
Okay, then we'll wait, and we'll make the thing, and then we'll project the initial screening of it on her gravestone.
Yeah.
Ooh. I think we
Talk about dark.
real dark.
I'm not saying anytime soon, but
it just.
But just let her know that the possibility is there.
Well, the possibility is that there for all of us, to be quite honest, But anyway, I don't. If we took that attitude with everything, Harrison Ford should not be playing Thunderbolt Ross. Yes, we lost William Hurt, but you know what? He wasn't the first actor to play that character. And as much as I love the fact that Harrison Ford is going to be part of the MCU, I would really love to see Sam Elliott back.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him as Ross.
Sam Elliott, he's pretty good too.
He's a pretty good actor. Yes.
Very good. Yeah.
So anyway, I saw that and I was just like, she still doesn't get. I don't understand the thinking, but now the article also, or the piece also talked about, hey, Ki-Hu Kwan, who played Short Round in Temple of Doom, he's interested in coming back and playing the character again. There was a lot, so maybe there could be a series based on his character as an adult and being the next generation Indiana Jones. I mean, there were some people hoping that that's going to happen with this new film, which I don't know, but from everything, all the hints and stuff, and the way they're talking, it doesn't sound like he's involved. So it's not going to be a passing of the torch on the Short Round, where he gets the whip and the fedora and all that. But there's a lot of people who would love to see that, and honestly, I would too. I think it would be cool.
It's certainly an interesting possibility.
Yeah. Okay. The other article I want to bring up was which this was pretty big news. But it's led to it's some speculation which I had immediately when I first heard about this. Marvel Comics has announced that they will be releasing omnibuses of the run of Ron, the Space Knight, and the Micronauts. I believe Ron is going to be later this year, and Micronauts is going to be next year. These were comic book series from the 80s, or early to mid 80s, but these were based off of properties from Hasbro toys. So with that happening, and IDW, who was doing G.I. Joe and Transformers and My Little Pony, they don't have that license anymore. There's some speculation that Marvel's about to get all the Hasbro line.
Huh.
If they've gone this far, I can see them doing omnibuses of the G.I. Joe and Transformers stuff from the 80s. But could we have some original content coming? Don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. But it seems there's a big fan base. Because God, Larry Hama's been writing this version of G.I. Joe since issue 1. And he was writing it up until it just ended for IDW here within the last year. If he's still on board and still wants to do it, get it done.
Right? Why not?
So, but it's interesting. I never thought I would see the day that this stuff would be collected, much less in an omnibus form.
Yeah.
Because these were licensed properties, and Marvel would have to actually obtain the rights to be able to reprint them. But it's happening. So Is there something more along the way? I guess we'll find out here in the next several months. But it's really cool. I'm definitely getting both of these when they come out.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Alrighty. Any special shout outs or mentions this week?
Not me.
No.
Nothing here.
Okay, we'll just go on to our regular shout outs. First of all, I wanted to thank Pop Goes the Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of a great group of fellow podcasts. There will be a link in the show notes where you can check them out. We also want you to check out the fine men and women who make up Potter and Family on Twitter, who've been kind enough to spread the word of the fellowship by retweeting our links. To check them out, you just do a search, hashtag Potter and Family. That's all one word. Scroll through, and whatever catches your eye, just click on that link, download that episode. Hope you have a great time listening to them. We also want to thank Maddie the Martyr for supplying music to the podcast. In our show notes, there will be a link to where you can check out some of their other music. Thank you guys as always. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We value your feedback. Any comments, questions, complaints, observations, suggestions, what have you, please send them our way. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net is our email address. Or you can go to the website, go to the About Us page, and there is a contact form you can fill out there. If you join our Discord, we do have a channel specifically for feedback. On social media, we're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. On Twitter, Instagram, and Hive Social, we're at Fellowship of Geeks. If you want to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. Les may or may not be found on the fake Les Webster. And I could be found at TomTC Geek. And from wherever you download our episodes, if you'd be so kind as to to do a review and rating, it would be greatly appreciated. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening, everybody. We do appreciate your support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,